afternoon. I just want to thank you all for joining me for our meeting. The theme of our meeting today is globalization. And I'm sure all of you are familiar with globalization, but I'm going to read a definition just so that we're all on the same page. Globalization is a process of interaction and integration among the people, companies, and governments of different nations. A process driven by international trade and investment and aided by information technology. This process has effects on the environment, on cultures, on political systems, on economic development and prosperity, and on human physical well-being in societies around the world. And this is a topic that I remember studying in school. And at the time, for me, it was all about the internet, because to me, that's what globalization is all about. And I'm a millennial, so of course I have a brief understanding of what the world was like before the internet, but not much at all. But one of the reasons that I really like it is that globalization affects every single human being on this earth in one way or another. And they may not even know that it does affect them, but it does. So because we do have a smaller group and only one speaker, I actually would love to go around the room and have a bit of a discussion on what globalization means to you personally.
Cool.
So Kate, if you want, you can take a moment to think about it, but
to me, globalization definitely has both positive and negative sides to it, but I like to focus on the positives, which is basically a sharing of cultures, of ideals, of concepts. And like Amy, I grew up with the internet, so to me, being able to, follow somebody who lives in China or in Australia and see things that they talk about and they post and share that culture, to me, that effect of globalization is very positive because it gives all of us a little bit of a common thread as well as a broader sense of what else is going on in the world that we might not hear through our bubbles. So that's for me.
Thank you.
Globalization, yes. Like Kate said, to me there are a lot of positive that it has brought, but then at the same time there are also a lot of negative that it has also brought. It has made the world a much, much smaller place than it was. Right? The trade, commerce, the interaction that we have with people halfway around the world, and then the movement of goods and services, that has helped a lot of people in the developing countries reap the benefits where their standards of living have increased. But then at the same time, there is also a perceived perception of, hey, globalization has made my living standard lower because now I have to compete with people who don't have the same trade protections that the area that I live in. But it is, what I see is, over the last 15 years, 20 years with this advent of internet, it has really rapidly progressed in terms of where we're heading. So, like I said, I like to focus on the positive, and it has brought a lot of good things to global human population.
Globalization is a concept that I've been intimately familiar with since I was a little child. Born here in the U.S., raised in Colombia, then I went to Europe, high school in Germany, traveled through Europe, and after I obtained my degree in engineering, I came here to the U.S. to work, and I was working as an engineer, but later on, it wasn't too far out that I started in international sales, exploiting my languages and so on. So globalization to me is very familiar, and I'm a person that really has a difficult time recognizing borders. I think we live in the world. The world is round, it's not flat, like many people used to say back in the 1400s, and some are starting to believe that that's real today. So, to me, cultures, languages are just facts of life that we need to accept. colors of skin, and so on. So
Hi. For me, globalization, if I look at the most positive impact I can see is in the education. Because today we see like the kids, they get exposed to different cultures and they become a better citizen because they try to see that other person from a different culture or a country has the same skin. The color is different, but they still have the same blood. They think the same way. It's just that how they approach or they are nurtured, that's what makes the difference between different cultures, kids over there. Because now everyone has a freedom to study outside their country or even go out. Like I did my college education from India, but I did my master's in UK. So for me, globalization opened that door because I could go out and dream about being a global citizen, which at least in my country, I think we were a closed economy till 1991. And then in 1992, India opened its market and everything, and we got exposed to the global world. The fact was that Coke and Pepsi, they were banned in India. They came to India, I think, after 1991. So that's what people come to know. And like today in a school, they have a global, I would say, food drive where everyone brings their own culture food and people get to taste that food. And they know each other like, yeah, that's another aspect they can explore. So for me, that's what globalization is bringing, and it's making our future generation to be a better person and understand different cultures by living with the people from different cultures.
That's awesome. So I've spent the last 20 years in transportation and logistics. So people say, well, what does that mean, really? I think we know more now than we used to with the growth of Amazon. I think we understand logistics a lot more. That and the UPS commercials have helped. Prior to the UPS commercials, really you didn't, when you hear logistics, supply chain management, like what is that? Well, you could relate it to, you could bring it home to something they could relate to. So when there was a strike at the port and there wasn't food or merchandise on the shelves, you could say, this is because there's a strike at the port and you have 30 ships waiting to berth. So what happens is you are now a global citizen at your own Trader Joe's. I think there's a term that's called just in time, and I think that what has translated into our lives. That just in time used to mean very quick, just in time, like it's sitting on a shelf, you can get a phone call and you pick and pack it, and it is literally, it's almost like an Amazon delivery now that we expect the same day. So I think speed to market has shortened. I think we've all become global citizens, whether we have that passport or realize it or not, and that our responsibilities go back to what the true nature of who we are is that we are literally tied to every single person, that you are you, and I am you, and you are me, and that there's no getting around that. So I think that has opened up our consciousness. Now how we play that out is really up to us, and the responsibility of it. Thank you, Amy, for this wonderful discussion. What a treat to get to do something like this and learn into people's hearts and minds a little more. It's really fun. And it's a great question that I haven't thought about, and I think I will spend more time thinking about. Well, what has arisen for me so far is that I really like globalization because like many of you have pointed to, it shows that most humans are good people and really care. And even though globalization has made it very easy to see all the bad stuff happening around the world instantly, it also, something bad, when the Twin Towers fell in 2001, there was a huge outpouring of love from the whole world, which was, really cool. So even though
it amplifies some of the yucky stuff. I think that eventually we'll reach a tipping point where the yucky stuff is not going to be such a critical mass. I think those of us who are really basically kind and all want the same thing and value the same thing, trust and love for everyone and food for everyone, and save the trees and the whales, and so that's my thought on globalization.
That's so true.
I think globalization, as Vivek alluded to, the children learn a lot about other cultures, but as adults we also learn about other cultures and other belief systems and just their thought process. So that's interesting and good. And then we also do see, just through the news, where we're just some of the oppression that's going on in the world. You see places like North Korea and like the Middle East where there's just, well, first of all, a lot of these people, they just don't have our way of thinking, but it does open our eyes to see how much hurt is in the world, and maybe we can be galvanized to do something about it.
Good word.
Amy, I have to apologize. I zone out when you define what globalization is. But
That's okay.
I'll just tell you what I have in my family is my family and extended family is like represent almost half of the 1/8 of the globe. My husband is descendant from Europe. He's adopted, so he doesn't know. His parents are Italian, and all he knows is Tom and Joanne are his parents, and he doesn't really care. So he recognized he's Italian, and that's it. I'm Chinese, but Chinese descendant, but live in Vietnam. My sister married, her husband is Thai. My brother married lady who's Korean. My other brother married lady who is Malaysian.
Wow.
So
You got
we
Southeast
are the
Asia
same.
all covered.
all covered. And my
Go to
kids
their
said,
place for.
I'm really
so
hungry.
globalization is, to me, it was like when I first came to this country, I lived in Vietnam, all I saw is everyone same color, everyone same eye, same color. I didn't even know blonde hair existed, right? But when I came here, what I missed was the fruits. In New York City, they didn't have fruits that we have in Vietnam because we live in the equator. That's what I meant. But globalization, south that, we have mango. We don't have mango here, it comes from Mexico. We have durian. It doesn't have here, it's from somewhere else. The food, but we don't realize how globalization, we have spoiled. It's like, hey, food, but it didn't come here. So that's I know some people think it's stinky, but
Well, thank you all for sharing your thoughts on this. I think it's really interesting to get to know people's opinion, and like you said, Dipendra, this is a very controversial topic. Some people think that it did increase standard of living across the world, but some think the opposite, that maybe it's only the Western part of the world that was able to increase that standard of living. For me personally, I love having fruits available all time of the year. I know it's very weird for like my great-grandmother and people like that. But I think it is overall a positive thing. We just have that responsibility to make sure that we are careful with it. So for the rest of the meeting, I will be sharing some more insights on globalization. But before we get started with our speaker today, I would like to bring up Dipendra, who is our general evaluator, so he can introduce his evaluation team.
Absolutely.
Can I get the sign in as well?
Thank you, Amy, and fellow Toastmasters. We have a lineup of wonderful evaluators today, and I would like to start with Kathy as a timer role. Kathy, will you please explain your role?
Absolutely. My role is to keep time. Ellen will be speaking today. She has a 5 to 7 minute speech. So the green will come on at 5, the yellow at 6, the red at 7. If she goes to 7:31, then she would not qualify for the ribbon. Same for table topics, it's a 1 to 2 minute, 1 for green, 1.5 for yellow, 2 for red. If you go past 2:30, then no ribbon for you. Jorge will be the evaluator today. His evaluation will last between 2 and 3 minutes. If you exceed 3.5 minutes, then you would not be eligible and you would lose to nobody. And I'll report at the end. I will report at the end if there's anybody that doesn't qualify.
You're coming for twice on time or in time.
Thank you, Kathy, for the wonderful explanation of your role.
right.
Vivek, thank you very much for volunteering. Would you please explain your role today?
Good afternoon, everyone. So today I will be doing the counter role. I think I'm doing it after a long time, so I may be making some mistakes. But my role would be to listen carefully and look for the filler words, so you know, and some other distractions. And I would like to capture some good words or sentences which were being said today. So I already got 1 or 2, so I'll be reporting all of them at the end of the meeting.
Thank you, Vivek. Next, we have Kate. As a grammarian, will you please explain your role?
Hello, so today I will be looking for any incorrect grammar. I'll suggest a change or the correct way. I'll also be looking for any incomplete sentences. And the word of the day, which is following with our theme here, integrate. One of its definitions is to bring people or groups with particular characteristics or needs into equal participation in a social group or institution. So by learning Spanish in high school, she found it easier to integrate into the culture of Spain when she traveled there as an adult. Still waiting. It's going to happen.
Thank you, Kate. And indeed, the Toastmasters meeting is one where it allows us to integrate our ideas with the common goal of improving our speaking abilities. With that, I would like to invite Amy.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Today's speaker, she will be speaking from the Speaking to Inform Manual number 4, a fact-finding report. The title of her speech is Be Honest with Our History. She'll be speaking on how you eliminate racism. So first you need to be honest with our history. How, when, and why did racism begin, and who? Most people believe racists are ignorant and hateful. Through Ellen's research, supported by facts, not fake news, racism begins with an idea. People then follow this idea blindly due to self-interest and greed. Ignorance and hate come later. So when did this idea begin? Why did it begin? There are other people and philosophers who believe God gave liberty to all men, and no one is a slave. Politics and laws are results of an idea. For example, separate and equal and segregation. So these are all the topics that Miss Ellen will be talking about today. So please help me welcome the passionate and wonderful Miss Ellen.
Madam Timer, please do not turn on the timer yet. I have a request. Please be blunt with your comments. I'd like to improve this, and the way I've been doing this, I take one speech, I keep doing it at the same speed over until I get it right. Hello, Toastmaster. This is a very hard topic for me, racism. It's very difficult to talk about because first, none of us here own slaves. Today's world is called human trafficking. But if our ancestors did, it is not our fault. It is not our crime. It's in the Constitution. What our grandparents did, it is not our crime. So, second, despite that we have all these problems in our country right now, we are still the most democratic country in the world because we have freedoms. Right now, I could speak freely about this topic. I couldn't believe that we have white supremacy in 2017. The worst part is that our leader did not condemn. I decided to look into why, how, and when racism began. Before I start, I'd like to read you a quote. This quote was by Jefferson Davis. He later became the president of the Confederacy. This government was not founded by Negroes, nor for Negroes, but by white men for white men. Davis was against a bill funding education for the blacks. He also stated that inequality of the white and black races was stemmed from the beginning. Prior to reading this book, stemmed from the beginning. This is a nonfiction book. I thought racist, white supremacists are ignorant and hateful. After reading the book, I still believe they are. But the foundation of it is stemmed from an idea. An idea leads to policy, and a policy leads to disparity, racial disparity. If it's hatred and ignorance, that is so easy to solve. Education, educate people not to be ignorant. Teach them to be kind. That's easy. So let's start with, what is a racist idea, according to this author? A racist idea is an idea that a group is more superior than the other, or a group that is inferior to the other. What is the motive? Self-interest, economically, culturally, politically. One word, money. Two words, money, power. And the freedom to create power. An example, in 1400, the Portuguese needed the pioneer of slavery before the Pope. So, to justify that, they said the black Africans are barbarians. We need to civilize them, and we need to take them. This is a racist idea. So slavery did not start in the South. It started in the North. And it didn't start in 1800. Slavery started way before, in the Roman. But today I'm going to talk about the United States. So I'm going to start that it came in 1619 in Jamestown. Slavery at first was used as a servant, because European, we have indentured servants from Europe, and they were quite expensive. Slavery was cheaper. And the economy was tobacco at that time. There are two major characters that influence this idea. How do you influence a whole group that this group is inferior? And how do you tell them that I need to own you as a person, not as a property? This is property. It's through ideas. There are two leaders, church leaders, and I don't have time to read them. Basically, they are saying that blacks, so are not Christian. We need to baptize them. However, when we baptize them, they are not free. That's the next theory. There are other theories too. That white people descended from Adam and Eve. Black people are descended from different Adam. They are the curse of Ham. And the other theory is assimilationist. Argue monogenesis, that all humans are descended from Adam and Eve. And through the climate change, that certain people migrated to Africa and their skin turned black. And then to make them white, we need to take them back to Europe to enslave them, and they will turn white. And segregationists believe that polygenesis, that there were multiple origins. So that means God created European, Chinese, Asians, and black. And there's a hierarchy. The hierarchy is black at the bottom, white is at the top. So the motive is the next page, King Cotton. By 1860, American export of king cotton was 59% of the GDP of the United States. Motive. If you look at the statistics, in 1790, just take a look at the South. We have 654,000 of slaves. By 1861, 3.2. The opportunity, we have free land. Louisiana purchased more land to purchase. The statistic shows 75% of the white families in the South own 40 slaves. Motive, greed, free labor. The idea is the black cannot govern themselves without the white. In conclusion, America is a great country, but we have to be honest with our history. According to Jeffrey Robinson, a civil rights activist, the groups controls the history, controls the future. Think about that. If you believe that inferior, your policy will come out inferior. Racist ideas justify for slavery, segregation, policy like to repeal Obamacare. Without the black Americans, we wouldn't have the economy today. My calling is to educate our kids the right history, and for us to examine our policies, the ideas, and the motive. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Ellen, for that wonderful speech. Something that we could talk about. I feel like we could spend hours and hours discussing. So I really appreciate you getting that started. Madam Timer, may I please have a minute for evaluations?
That's 1 minute.
I'm going to share a little fun fact for everybody today on the topic of globalization. Today, Google is celebrating 19 years as one of our favorite search engines. So.
Wow.
Anyone remembers Alta Vista? Or Lycos?
You're showing your age.
I know.
I've heard of Alta Vista, but I don't think I even
Lycos.
know.
Yeah, I
No.
remember
I don't even remember
Early-
those.
early-
Lycos was like, they even had an email address like you could
Yeah,
have your email
so-
address.
I was using it a long time.
Yeah.
Yahoo and
I'm old.
AOL are all.
AOL,
AOL and
Earthlink.
Yahoo.
Yeah,
Earthlink.
AOL,
Yeah.
Yes.
But Earthlink was a network, not a
Oh, that's
search
right.
engine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
AOL was, I think, 2000 we are talking about, like 2000 to 2005.
Late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah,
Yeah.
till 2005.
You got mail.
Hot-
I love that movie.
hot
Yes.
Yeah.
Instant
Okay.
messaging.
Yeah.
Yes.
So 8 windows up at once and somehow knowing exactly what was going on.
Getting email was the greatest thing.
Yeah.
Right, yes.
Now I
Now we're enslaved.
Real letter.
Yes.
Yes, we are.
Okay, well, on that note, I am going to bring up our wonderful table topics master, Miss Kathy Nishihara. And Kathy, before you go, I do have a question. Are we still planning the 10 minutes for the business meeting at the end of the
We
meeting?
do have, there's a couple of things I want to talk about.
Okay,
So, I mean,
perfect.
we probably don't need
Wonderful.
10 minutes, but.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, thank you. Please
Thank
welcome.
In keeping with the theme of globalization, I have some questions that kind of refer to just foreign countries or the future and things like that. So I will start with Julie.
Yes.
If it were the only way you could remain with the love of your life, would you be willing for both of you to wake up tomorrow as native speakers of an unfamiliar foreign language, knowing that you would forget your current language and be largely cut off from your friends and culture here? Where would you want to move to?
Could you say the question again?
If this were the only way that you could remain with the love of your life, would you be willing for both of you to wake up tomorrow as native speakers of an unfamiliar foreign language, knowing that you will be completely cut off from your friends and family here? And if so, where would you want to move to?
Well, as much as I would be very sad to give up contact with my family and friends and culture, I have always wanted to live in another culture, and this would be a fantastic opportunity to go with Steve, the love of my life, and I imagine take my dog and my horse because they don't speak English anyway, so because I couldn't leave them. So as long as they could come, Steve and my horse and my dog could come, I would absolutely love it. I would love the opportunity to wake up in another language. Although I think if I woke up and fluent in another language, then it might not be quite the jumbly adjustment that I sort of would look forward to moving to another country, because I know it would be an incredibly stretching and growing experience. And where would I like to go? Gosh, there's so many wonderful places. I guess I would be torn between going to South Africa or somewhere in Africa where I could just watch large animals all the time, or Italy, because the food is so good, and the wine, and the Mediterranean. So yeah, that's my answer. Thank you. Fun
Mamma
question.
mia.
Vivek, if advanced technology enabled everyone to enjoy the material benefits of an upper middle class lifestyle, how would this change your life, and what would be your biggest concern about everyone being an upper middle class?
Interesting.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let me repeat the question if I understood it correctly. With the advancement of technology, if everyone moved to upper middle class, how would I feel if everyone is over there?
And what would be your biggest concern?
What would be my biggest concern? First of all, I think I don't believe in the upper middle class or a lower middle class. We all are equal human beings. It's just that it's the categorization which we human beings have created. You have more money, that's why you are in upper middle class. I don't make as much money as you are, that's why I'm in a lower middle class. That, for me, the biggest concern, if everyone would be there, my biggest concern would be, I would feel nervous. Because today, the people who are in, I would say, very rich, they feel themselves to be the privilege that they can do anything, they can say anything what they want. My point of view is that I would lose that touch with my Mother Earth, and I would not be able to educate my kids to be a better citizen of the future. That would be my biggest concern. Thank you.
Next question is a little bit there was a news article, I don't know, maybe a month ago, where they were saying people in Norway, the citizens in Norway, if a baby they saw had Down syndrome, I think they were either offering abortions, where it was kind of a weird news story, but this is along the same lines. Amy, if a foreign country embarked on a eugenics program, which is kind of calling the genetically, what they consider, I guess, undesirable for a better term. If a country embarked on a eugenics program to raise the average IQ of the next generation by 30 points, so the average of their kids was smarter than 49 of 50 kids here, how would you want our country to respond?
Wow.
It's a very difficult question and one that I probably would need to spend a lot more time on, but my initial thought is, kind of speaks to what Vivek was saying. I am a firm believer that people are equal, and given these same opportunities, we could all reach the same levels of intelligence. And I know people have varying IQs, but hard work can achieve greatness. I am never a fan of adjusting things that are naturally already established. And so I personally would hope that we would put a stop to it, because I think there is a certain point that you can reach where you have too much control and are trying to play God. And we already have a God, so there's no point for us to go in and try and play that role. I would hope that we would educate, research, and do our best to let them know that we don't agree. Obviously, I don't think that war is ever the answer to anything, but I would hope that we would definitely put our foot down and say that that is not coming to our country.
Thank you, Vivek.
I think we could do one more. Okay, one more.
Kate, do you look towards the future with anticipation or anxiety?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Oh boy, that is. Currently, though I am excited for many things that are coming, many new technologies, innovations, again, that optimistic version of globalization where we all help each other and recognize the failings in the world and combine our strengths and do what we can to solve them. Not gonna lie, the past couple years have made me very anxious for the future. So even though I want to have that positive outlook, I definitely have a hope for the best, prepare for the worst kind of mindset. And so I'd say currently I'm a little anxious. I'm hoping that maybe 2018 will surprise me and put me back on that super positive, everything is gonna be sparkly, shiny, happy. But I think that what we do every day in our own lives can also affect that outcome, however small. So for me, just making sure that I live with that intent and that I put as much positivity and help whenever I can, and hopefully others will do the same. And then maybe we won't have anxious futures to dread. Thank you.
And I will turn this back over to our lovely Toastmasters.
Great questions. Again, just with the theme, we're just discussing good ideas. I love it. Another fun fact. Since 1950, the volume of world trade has increased by 20 times. 20 times. And from 1997 to 1999, that was 2 years, the foreign investment nearly doubled from 468 billion to 827 billion. This is kind of an older website that I was looking at for that information. I would love to see now, because I'm sure it's just even more dramatic. So just to show that the increase that we've seen in the past several years. Okay, moving on to the evaluation part of our meeting. Dipendra, I would love to invite you up and introduce your other evaluator.
Absolutely. Thank you, Amy. What a wonderful meeting that we have had as of right now, and it's going to get better. This is the part where we evaluate the speaker and give you the feedback. And the privilege today, with that privilege, is Jorge. I would like to invite Jorge to the podium to evaluate Alex's speech.
you. Fellow Toastmasters, ladies and gentlemen. Talking about Ellen's speech, you went and had a good explanation of the content of your speech. However, I feel that the title of the speech may not have connected exactly with the content. It was a little bit far off, and probably that's one of the reasons it needed to be globalized. So, and integrate, probably get something closer to the content, and so that people have an idea. Was the report organized clearly and logically? You used several concepts that are useful in going through the whole process, and one of them is to use chronological ideas that you exposed, some concepts and some hierarchy or hierarchical ideas to be able to explain that. Did the speaker use visual aids? No, there were no visual aids, and perhaps that would have complemented the content quite validly. As I remember, the Chinese always say that an image is worth 10,000 words. So project an image and it really contains a lot of information. You presented a number of concepts to illustrate and educate, and at the end it was clear. You were missing the Q&A session, and of course the question and answer period, whether you answer the question or not. So that's my report. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Renee.
Brenda.
So with this, I'd like to ask Kathy for the timers report, please.
Unfortunately, Ellen, you went over. You were at 8:21. So you'll not be eligible for the ribbon, but just the ribbon of our heart. On our table topics, everybody qualified, ranging from 1:07 to 1:19. And Jorge qualified at 2:46.
Ooh.
Awesome. Vivek, will you please provide your report?
Yes, before I say the filler words, I want to integrate some of the good things I saw. So I like some of the quotes, Kathy, which you said, you are you, I am you, we are connected to each other. That was a lovely quote. And then you said ribbon of our heart. That was another thing. And then you will lose to nobody. So very well, I would say, like some things the thing I saw in this is like putting up a very positive spin, how to say things which will make people laugh without feeling them like being condescending, actually, not condescending.
Can you guys fill out your?
So for Amy, I just noticed some distraction. You said we can, he can. You say that together. And then speaking to or from, you just said together. So that was one thing. Dipendra, you said twice, our speaking. So that was one thing. and I noticed one so from you. Ellen, I was so engrossed in the meeting or the speech that I only caught one so I couldn't catch anything else. But maybe it's I didn't pay attention because I was attentively listening to the speech. Jorge, I noticed 4 R's and you used or without any continuing with any sentence after that. So that was one. And that's all for me.
Great.
Thank
You,
you.
Vivek. Next, I'd like to go to Kate. Please provide a report.
I must admit, I was very engrossed in everything we were saying, and I did not watch for Word of the Day as much as I should have. So I caught 1 from Amy, 1 from Ellen, 1 from Jorge, 2 from Vivek, and 1 from Kathy. If I missed you, I'm very sorry. I was very distracted. And as far as incorrect grammar, Vivek, you just said I'm much more better instead of much better, which I thought was, you were really much better, much more better. It might have been for emphasis, but other than that, everyone did very well. Couple change of direction, but no big. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Kate. And part of my evaluation is I think the meeting went very well. We may not have had as many participation, but it also allowed us more time on the platform to engage with each other and more practice more on this comfortable forum. I like the topics that you had, Kathy, that integrated with the topic of globalization that Amy had, and the speech that Ellen had also feel right very well into it. So overall, very good meeting. Thank you everyone. With that, I'd like to invite Amy.
Thank you, Dipendra. Thank you everybody for participating in our meeting today. We now have the fun part of giving out ribbons for our best evaluator and table topics. Let's start with the best table topics. Can I please get a drum roll? And we have a tie, so it's going to be Kate and Vivek. Woo! I'll have to get one of you.
Do we have some scissors?
They do that, they need a full ribbon. A full ribbon.
Oh, are we going? Sorry.
Yes.
I was distracted again. Apparently that is my theme song today. Oh,
Thank you. You're gonna get this one, and then Vivek, I will get your one right
Sure.
after the meeting.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I'm getting more comfy.
And the best evaluator. Was that your first? How many evaluations have you done?
This is my first.
Your first,
Wow.
oh.
And I'm glad I was the only one.
Very nice job. And Ellen, I do want to say that your speech was beautiful, and I feel, I've seen you give several speeches, and I think that you are very comfortable with this topic, and it seemed like you were focused and you knew what you wanted to say. I think you need more than 5 to 7 minutes to go over it. You did have the packet, but as a visual aid, but I think that a PowerPoint might be a lovely way of moving forward as well. But really nice job, and I wish I could give you a ribbon, but like Kathy said, you have the ribbon on our hearts. I would now like to call up Miss Kathy so that she can give us our business meeting to end our meeting today.
Thank you, Amy.
Yes.
We do have things, we have ribbons, so,
Oh, do we?
yes, they were kind of stuck. As soon as I can find the tabletop, that would be even better.
I can.
So I already talked about the idea that the board would like to purchase badges for, but we'll probably have a vote on this next meeting when hopefully we'll have a quorum. The other announcement is that we're gonna have a Tall Tales contest on October 25th. And so you heard Linda's speech about our story on Paul Bunyan, and that's kind of the tall tale, but we are gonna have a Tall Tales contest on the 25th. Linda's the chair, and so she'll probably have more, she's not here, she wasn't able to make it, so she'll have more details, but October 25th is our Tall Tales contest, and that is kind of the only 2 announcements for this meeting.
I have one announcement, and it's that I may not be present during the month of November and beginning of December,
Okay.
because I am very likely going to be heading to Europe So I would like somebody to take charge of videos. I cannot leave the camera because that one is going with me out there, so.
I know other clubs use, they just get an iPhone.
Or an
I mean,
iPhone,
it's-
yeah.
I mean, it's, okay.
Thank you.
So you said November, December? Or-
November the 8th is the target.
Okay. Good to know, thank you. I don't have anything else. Do you? Is
Thank you to the Snack Master.
there- Yeah?
Thank you for the
Yeah.
apples.
Don't forget.
Anybody want some more?
Well, then I guess our meeting's adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Ellen, did we pay? Did we pay?
Okay.
We paid?
Oh, we didn't pay?
You didn't.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say, I
Your
saw,
voice was more than.
yeah, so
Yeah, mine
mine.
too, and I was like,
Just making
just,
sure.
I'll find out at the meeting.
Whenever you feel comfortable, nothing